Hey guys, today I'll be breaking down the trades I took last week. Let's get into it. So, without wasting too much of your time, I was on the charts just doing my usual analysis, going through different pairs, and nothing really stood out at first. But then I landed on EURGBP, and something about the structure immediately caught my attention. At first, I didn't jump in. I took my time to really understand what price was doing. I noticed that liquidity had already been swept, which is always a big sign for me. Then, as I kept watching, price gave a very clean break of structure, and that's when things started to get interesting. From there, I started mapping out my levels properly. I identified the order block that formed after the move, and I knew that if price came back into that area, there could be a potential entry. But instead of chasing the trade, I stayed patient and let the market come to me. Eventually, price retraced back into my zone, and I could see the reaction forming. At that point, everything was lining up exactly how I wanted. Structure, liquidity, and entry model all in sync. So I didn't hesitate. I followed my plan and took the trade. So price came down nicely into my zone and tapped me in on my buy limit order. Clean entry, exactly as planned. Almost immediately after that, the trade started pushing into profit, and I could see momentum building up. At this point, everything was looking really good. The reaction from the zone was sharp. Price kept pushing deeper into profit, and at this stage, the trade was looking really solid. The momentum was consistent, and there were no signs of weakness yet, which is always a good sign. But even with that, I didn't allow myself to get too excited. So I stayed composed and stuck to my plan. Let's continue and see how this plays out. So yeah, price eventually came back and hit my stop loss. I won't lie, it was a bit surprising because the trade was looking really good at first. But this is trading. Setups don't always play out the way we expect, no matter how clean they look. The important thing is that I followed my rules, managed my risk properly, and didn't let emotions take over. And not too long after, I found another setup. Let's get into it. So, moving on to this setup, everything was actually looking really good from the start. Structure was making sense, liquidity had been interacted with, and overall, the market was telling a clear story. At that point, it wasn't just a random idea anymore. It became a setup worth paying attention to. So, what I did next was start marking out my zones carefully. I identified my areas of interest, refined my levels, and made sure everything aligned with my trading plan. I didn't rush anything here. I wanted to be as precise as possible because execution is just as important as the setup itself. As I continued to analyze it, everything was still looking solid. The structure remained clean, my zones were respected, and overall the setup was developing exactly how I would want it to. However, there was one small concern at the back of my mind. And that was the timing. It was already Friday, and if you've been trading for a while, you know that Fridays can be a bit tricky. At the end of the day, I decided to stick to my plan and see how things would play out. I didn't want to overthink it or talk myself out of a valid setup, but at the same time, I stayed aware of the risks involved with trading late in the week. So yeah, everything was looking good overall, but with that little concern in mind, let's see how this one plays out. Price tapped into my entry and started moving in my favor almost immediately, so everything was looking really good. But it didn't quite reach my TP or SL before the market closed, so this one is still running. Now, if you want to see how this trade eventually plays out, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the update next week.